to Death and Aliens, an in-depth look at horror and sci-fi TV from two friends who vaguely know what they're doing. I'm MK.
And I'm Courtney.
And Courtney, how are you?
I'm sleepy, but
Yeah.
I'm okay. It's been a long day. It's a Monday.
Mhm.
Um,
It always is.
but it always is. God, every day feels like Monday.
That was mostly a joke because we record on Mondays, but also because every day is exhausting.
Every day is exhausting, yeah. But we do record on Mondays. Yeah, Rachel asked me today, she's like, why don't you move to like a Thursday? Because I don't go to the office Thursday and Friday. I was like, well, Mary Kate has something after work most days. And she's at the theater a lot
I was like,
almost.
yeah, Mary Kate works at a theater, and Mondays are the only days that the theater will never
Right.
have a show.
I was like, Monday's the only day we can guarantee there is nothing else happening. So yeah, that's that. But yeah, I'm fine. My birthday was last week, so I'm a year older and a year wiser now. That's what they tell me. Not one person has told me that I've sounded wiser in the past week. That is not a true statement. If anything, probably the opposite. But yeah, so I went and saw Beetlejuice, which was so amazing. The one on stage, not in the movie theater. I've been trying to see it for 4 years, as we know.
Yeah.
So that was amazing. We went to this place called Mondays, which is apparently like TikTok hip, which is how Rachel found it. But it was really good. And we had like boudin egg rolls and sweet chili Thai wings, and
nice.
split some little sliders and truffle fries, and then we had a couple of friends over for game night on Friday. We got to play all my favorite games.
Love that.
Which I love a game night. So it was really fun. And I made a cake. I wanted to make a s'mores cake. And so Nick is a whiz with frosting, and I am just gonna bake something good one day.
One day.
It's just gonna happen. It was not this day. My cake came out too dry because, as with all things in my life, I was a little chaotic in baking it, but I should measure the pans. It's supposed to be an 8-inch pan, and I think I put it in 9-inch pans, but I was just like, it's fine. And then it was a little dry, but otherwise it would have been good. Could have been the recipe. Maybe it wasn't me. We could have just blamed the recipe. But then Nick made a really good like marshmallow buttercreamy frosting. I had like graham cracker crumbles on it. It's very sweet, but it is really good with coffee. I had it yesterday with coffee. So I had like a full little like birthday week of random things that we did, and we went and had like shogun, which is like hibachi, on Saturday, and we just worked a lot. It's just been one of those weeks where it's just kind of so many things and so little things have happened.
Yeah.
And so here I am. How are you?
I feel the same way. Like everything and nothing happened. I went to like figure out what I had done since we recorded. But Brittany's wedding was on Friday, so I literally really did not do anything last week except for the wedding, which was a lot. Like I did a lot because a wedding is a lot of work. But it was so beautiful. It was also dramatic and chaotic, and I hope that Brittany did not feel any of the drama and the chaos because mostly it was her family. Families are annoying. I hate them. But like me and the other bridesmaids, like we tried to make sure that everything was not feeling any of that chaos. I wrote a 6-page maid of honor speech. And I was determined that I was not going to cry. I cried in the middle of the second paragraph.
Yeah. I wrote a 1-page speech for Caitlin's and cried in the second, like started crying in the second paragraph.
By the end of it, I was like literally like snot dripping down my nose crying. Like, and Brittany was also like just sitting at the sweetheart table, bawling her eyes out. And Dee was trying to hold it together until the end of the speech where I told him I loved him in Afrikaans, and then he started fucking crying too. And like, it was just, and I went first for the speeches.
Do only maid of honors have to give speeches?
Yeah, so the maid of honor and the maid of honor and the best man and the matron of honor. So Brittany had 2 maid of honors. But I went first, and then Hugo and Meg had to follow up after my 6-page like speech that made everyone cry.
That tracks.
Yeah. That's because it's not that long.
I love you, but I hate giving speeches.
No.
So I'm really glad it's not for me.
No. Apparently, Doug and David will both be giving speeches. They also made a joke about the fact that they will both be writing speeches, but then they will be like tandem reading the both separate
Ooh.
speeches. I'm very nervous for both of them existing at all, like
Mm.
for my wedding. Um, my dad was like,
I get that.
my dad was like, I'm not gonna say a very long speech at your wedding. I was like, Dad, you're not gonna be able to speak at my wedding, so like I'm not
That's very true.
um weird. Yeah, and then I'm sure Jill will say something awful because she made me cry so hard at my bachelorette party or at my bridal shower that like I don't
Hmm.
even know how to function. Um, that was just like with a note that she wrote in a card, not anything she even like said to other people. So like, it'll be great.
I'll just sip my cocktail. Cherish you.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah,
I'm not one for words. I'm good with words. I'm not one for speaking in front of people.
yeah. But it was beautiful. It was a little chilly. An outdoor wedding in
Hmm.
November is not something I would
Hmm.
recommend. Just personally. But it was beautiful and it was really, really, really nice. But also the number of people who were like, all right, this is it. Now this one's done. You're the only one left. And I was like, and I have been in a constant state of panic and aggravation since I left the wedding on Friday. Like I have literally done
Yeah,
nothing since I left the wedding on Friday except for feel like I'm going to die or
sure,
cancel my
sure.
wedding.
Hmm.
So,
Yeah,
which
no problem.
Rachel says is right on track.
Hmm. You're doing great.
Yeah. So,
You're doing excellent.
while I'm absolutely spiraling, can you guide me to safer havens?
I can sure try my best. Hold on, I was eating chowder. Um, Life is not easy for any of us, but what of that? We must have perseverance and, above all, confidence in ourselves. We must believe we are gifted for something and that this thing must be attained. Marie Curie.
Beautiful. So,
Oh,
speaking of my thing, I had texted Elizabeth before we were talking about stuff, and I said, one day I'll breathe. And her response was, one day, a very far day away.
yeah,
Thank you for the support. You're not wrong,
oh,
but thank you for the support.
right. It's okay. I keep saying, yeah, next week's better. And then it never gets better.
No,
Something new happens.
next week's Thanksgiving, so it can't be better.
I haven't planned on. That always is my job, whether I know it is or not, until I get there. Can't wait.
On much happier notes, though, we're going to talk about Stargate SG-1, Season 7, Episode 3, Fragile Balance. This episode came out on Friday, June 20th, 2003, and it was rated 8.1 stars. So we have not dropped below 8 yet this season.
Mhm.
We have the same number one song and the same number one book as last week, but the number one movie is no longer Finding Nemo. It is, in fact, Hulk,
What
which
year are we in?
2003. So it's
Eric Bana?
it's the Eric Bana Hulk, which we have talked plenty of times on this podcast about
Yeah, yeah.
how we feel about that movie. So I'm not really going to go into detail. Terrible. Um, on this day, this is what I wrote for on this day is so stupid because I literally, first of all, I was doing this at work today because I was bored at work, but then also I was at work, so I wasn't actually paying attention to what I was doing, and
Mhm.
also there's still no information on the year 2003 on the internet. A new train line opened in Singapore, like on their MRT station, and that's all I have.
Oh, wow.
I know.
Super fun day.
Super fun day. There was like somebody who was like accused of selling information to Saddam Hussein, like sued somebody else, and like somebody who may or may not have sold NASA secrets joined a board for some like it was all just like dumb shit.
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
so, but they were like, Singapore's MRT opened their blue green line, and I was like, cool, that's something I can talk about.
That is so thrilling.
I've never been to Singapore. COVID
I
ruined
was
my
going to
life.
ask you.
No, that was I was supposed to go to Singapore in March of 2020.
Oh, yeah. Not a good
And
time for that.
and then Singapore, like, they were like, my hotel canceled, and we're like, you can't come here. But then I got it on Airbnb, and then my flight was like, and then Bangkok was like, if you go to Singapore, you can't come back. And I was like, okay, cool. And then my flight was like, no, literally, you can't go to Singapore. And then I was like, fine, I guess I won't go to Singapore. Jesus Christ. Like, it took literally everything being like, no,
You
like,
really
literally, you can't. So I went to Bali instead because Indonesia didn't have any cases of COVID yet.
can't.
Good times. This episode was directed by Peter DeLuise, and the story was by Peter DeLuise and Michael Greenberg, and the teleplay was by Damian Kindler. And the editing was by Brad Rhymes. So nobody new here.
Same seats.
Our guest star is Michael Welch, who you probably recognized.
But I couldn't figure out from where. And I didn't look it up.
He's known for Star Trek Insurrection, which he was a small baby child in 1998 when he did that. He was literally 9. Oh no, 11. So, Boy Meets Girl, which I have never heard of.
Apparently it is an inappropriate show because I remember when I was little, I was trying to tell my aunt how much I love Boy Meets World. And she thought I said Boy Meets Girl. And was like, that is so inappropriate. You can't watch that. I don't know why your mom's letting you. And I was not allowed to watch anything. So she was like mind blown that I was watching it. So that's all I know about it.
Cool. And last but most certainly not least, what we all actually know him from, Twilight.
I'm sorry. Anytime you Twilight, like
he played Mike Newton in Twilight, the kid who's in love with Bella before she decides to love the vampires instead. It's fine. He's a vanilla blonde boy, so no one will ever pick him. That's not how fantasy works.
Oh gosh, yeah.
But also he, for a very, very long time, was in the show. I mean, by a very long time, he was in the show for as long as it existed, which wasn't as long as it could have been because it was an amazing show that did not get enough credit. Joan of Arcadia.
I never saw it.
Oh, so good. But fun fact, after filming the entire first season of Joan of Arcadia in the early 2000s, this episode was still the only thing people knew him from. Like, people would be like, oh, you're that kid who was in that Stargate episode, right? And he's like, I literally have a starring role on another TV show, but sure. Whatever.
What is his name?
Michael Welch. Like the grape juice.
Okay. Oh, look how cute he is now.
He's real cute now. He's adorable. Obviously he's Mike Newton. He also works for the Thirst Project, which is a your face. No, it is.
I have some questions.
It is a nonprofit that gets clean water to places in the world without access to clean water.
I figured that's what I think I've actually heard of it.
He actually, that's how he met his wife.
Oh, he's married.
He's married.
What a shame.
It is a shame. He's on his second wife, actually.
Oh, so there's a chance.
Yeah. But this one, they've been married since, I want to say, 2014.
That's a really long time.
I know. But yeah, they met working on a charity project together and like saving people in like third world countries. Yeah. So like you probably don't have a big chance.
Right.
Unfortunately.
That is so unfortunate.
He's also, no, I mean, he's 5 years older than me. So he's almost 40. He's 38.
Yeah.
It's not bad.
It's 5 years older than me too. I was born in 92 also.
Oh, that's right. Your birthday is, I always forget because you graduated from high school.
It's a new school year.
Yeah, it's a new school year. So I always forget that you are the same age as me, even though literally your birthday was last week and you turned the same age that I am. I still like didn't fucking put it together.
Did you see that he's in a movie by the producers of Twilight called Hansel and Gretel Get Baked?
I did not know. I have not seen that movie.
What a wild time. We should add it to the watch
I
list.
have seen Hansel and Gretel, or what's the Hansel and Gretel Witch Hunters or whatever.
I've not seen that one, but I
Oh,
wanted to. Is it good?
it's good. Um,
Mm.
but also Jeremy Renner is just a beautiful
Oh,
man.
just love him so much.
Yeah. Hansel and Gretel get baked. What the fuck is that? I gotta.
I mean, it's for sure about drugs. It has a
Oh,
weed leaf on it,
oh
but
my
it's made
God.
from the producers of Twilight.
But also Molly Quinn and Lara Flynn Boyle are. Oh, and Carrie Elwes, who's from and Lachlan Monroe. Like, what the fucking cast? What is happening here? That
I don't
is
know, dude.
that is very strange and very
Isn't
interesting.
it?
It is a horror comedy.
I can deal with horror comedy. Definitely need to watch that. Mm.
Plot: Gretel's boyfriend Ashton introduces her to a strain of marijuana called Black Forest, which is produced by an old lady named Agnes in Pasadena. After Gretel extorts him to get more, Ashton visits Agnes where he was drugged and realizes Agnes is a witch. She then proceeds to eat part of Ashton's body and eventually sucks out his youth, which restores her youth in turn. Gretel and her brother Hansel begin searching for Ashton, but they are ridiculed by the police, and the trail ends with Agnes, who reveals nothing.
That is the most insane thing I've ever heard. This, I just want to watch every movie he's ever been in because he's been in some weird stuff.
Right?
So, yeah. Wait, sorry to derail.
Also, he was the voice of Pinocchio in a direct-to-video Mickey's Magical House of Mouse episode. Just
He did a couple different voiceover things, it looks like.
yeah. Wild. What is he? Yeah, he's done a lot of like one or two episode arcs of TV
Mhm.
shows, but like the movies he's been in are fucking weird.
Wild. Yeah.
Oh, he was in Frankenweenie though.
Hmm.
Yeah, but yeah, so I always want to call him Mike Newton. He's not, he's Mike Welch, but Mike Newton is his Twilight character. Um, yeah, the only social media he has is an Instagram where he just posts political stuff all the time. So
Fine.
yeah. Um, so we start this episode. With someone tried to get into the base using Jack's security pass, and they obviously detained him, and he asked to speak to Sam. So she goes to see him, and it is a very sassy child, who is just ridiculous, and then says he did not steal Jack's ID. He is Jack. And then we get the credits.
I was like, what is happening? So I watched this, full disclosure. So as I mentioned, I did not go to bed at a reasonable time last night.
Yeah.
And I remembered at 1:30 this morning that I had not watched the shows for today.
Right.
Which is not a good time to remember that.
No.
So then I watched it while I was getting ready this morning. And this whole morning, on lack of sleep, I was just like, what is going on? Like,
That's fair. When I started taking notes, I paused the episode and I said, "Who do you think it is?" The person who snuck into the base. And Dan was like, "How in the fuck would I know that?"
oh, whenever I didn't see Jack in the picture and I saw it was a younger person, I was like, it's Jack. I was like, that was not a question for me.
Yeah, no, but he hadn't seen it. Like literally all that had played. Like he didn't see me start the episode. He literally just saw Sam and Hammond walking down the hallway. And then I was like, "Who do you think it is?" He was like, what?
Yeah, that's not a lot of
No,
notice.
no clues. But also sassy child Jack, baby Jack, as I call him for most of my notes, aggressively told a sergeant to bring him coffee.
Mhm.
And when we come back from the credits, the sergeant has brought him hot chocolate, which is my favorite.
That was so funny.
And they all continue to doubt his story. And he is like, listen, last night I made dinner, I had a beer, I went to bed, I woke up, I'm a child. I don't know what the fuck to tell you. Like, this is where we're at. And they're like, okay, it's a federal crime to impersonate a military official. Like, this is a problem. And he's like, I'm not impersonating anyone. He's like, that's not. So then he just starts spilling everyone's deepest, darkest secrets and tells them all things that it is literally impossible that anyone would know. And so they leave the room and Hammond's like, I don't know who this kid is. I'm still very skeptical. And Daniel's like, honestly, I believe it. It wouldn't be the weirdest thing that ever happened.
Truly, though, I
And
mean, have we not been here for the last
but then
7
this
seasons?
moment, he goes, stranger things have happened. And Teal'c says, name one.
I can name 10, Tilk. I can name
And
10.
Daniel goes, and this is also how we know for sure Daniel has gotten his memories back.
Mhm.
He goes, the time that Jack got really old, the time that Jack turned into a caveman, the time that we all swapped bodies with no. And my Dan is like crying at this point. He's like, you know, you got a point.
The Benjamin Button aspect, so much less like insane than
Yeah,
these
like
other ones.
do you not remember season 1 where Jack was like a different age every day? Um, I also like that the generous age that Hammond gave Jack because he was like, that kid can't be more than 15. You're telling me Colonel O'Neill lost 30 years in his sleep? And I was like, you're really trying to tell me Jack's 45?
Right.
It's so sweet of you. It's not true.
No.
But so Janet runs a test, and it turns out that the DNA is almost entirely Jack's. She was like, there's one small,
Mhm.
like little abnormality that we can't really identify, but like it is close enough that it would hold up in a court of law that this is the same person.
Right.
Um, so that's concerning. So they go to the mess hall, and baby Jack is very cranky because no one will give him coffee because he's a child.
Yeah.
And Sam
Well,
and
I was drinking coffee every day at 15, so I don't know. I'm creating tired all the time now, so maybe I shouldn't have been, but
probably.
yeah.
I explained to my students today, they asked why I waste the money on Starbucks. And I said, because when I go to Starbucks, I don't get regular coffee, I get espresso. And if I went to Tim Hortons, I would only get regular coffee. And espresso has more caffeine in it. And they said, do you need the caffeine? I said, yes. I said, would you yell at us more if you didn't have it? I said,
For sure.
100%. I don't, what? Guys, that's really sweet. But yeah, no, you would hate me if I did not have coffee. But Sam and Teal'c are like hysterical. They think this whole thing is so funny. Now that they've like bought into the fact that somehow Jack was turned into a child, they're like, look at how young and cute and spry you are. You should be so happy. And he's like, the fuck is so they go to his house and they try to find out what happened. And we find out that Jack lives like a fucking disgusting 22-year-old man.
Really living the bachelor life.
Yeah. And so they're going through his fridge and they're trying to figure out what he ate and what happened in his bedroom. And he suddenly has a memory flash of an Asgard and some floaty, flashy green lights surrounding him. So they're back at the SGC discussing this vision. And unfortunately, this seems like very incongruous to anything that they have ever encountered with the Asgard before. So they decide to divide and conquer. And Sam is going, like, they're going to keep reaching out to the Asgard to try to, like, figure out what they have to say about it. And Daniel is like, weirdly, that sounds a lot like a lot of the UFO sighting papers I've read. Because, of course, Daniel has just, like, casually read UFO sighting papers.
I would expect nothing less.
No. And Jack goes, you can remember those papers, but not my birthday. But so Daniel is gonna do some research about UFO sightings. And And then Hammond tells Sam that she is going to take over the pilot briefing for the new the Rio 2, which was their glider ship. They have a new pilot, like a program for people to fly these glider ships, and Sam's going to take over for the briefing. And Jack is pissed. He's like, I'm the one who flew these planes. I'm the one who should give the briefing to these pilots. Like, they're not going to take her seriously. And Hammond's like, they are not going to take you seriously. You're a small baby child.
Yeah.
Yeah. So then we go back to Daniel and Teal'c in their research, and turns out a lot of people have been abducted by aliens. Like, a lot.
I mean.
And they have 8 accounts.
Have they not watched X-Files? Come on, bro.
No, they have, because Daniel also talks about the fact that a lot of these things are very cliche. But there have been 8 accounts that put in specific details that match Jack's that would be very odd to have recreated in the US. So they decided to go interview all of these abductees. Because what else do they have to do?
It makes me think of that very first episode of Unsolved Mysteries where they have the like guy who says he got abducted because so I watched it, and then I watched it's the new one, maybe the new version of Unsolved Mysteries. Yeah. And so they did so much press on this one guy, and then I joined because I have no boundaries. I've joined a Unsolved Mysteries like Facebook group because I was like, yeah, I'm gonna solve it. I'm gonna solve everything for like a week. And this guy that was in the show added every person in that Facebook group, and I was like, you are not making a good case for people who have been abducted, bro. And so then we had these people that were like a little off sometimes. I was like, yeah, this is like really bumming me out for my wanting to believe people who are abducted stories.
Yeah, no, it's hard because you're like, wow, I believe in aliens, but also
like I don't know that I believe you.
Right. I just think you may need a mental health professional.
Right. So
Sam
but
tries
also like sorry, also this thing with this one, like they're like, we have to go talk to all these people that have been abducted by aliens, and I'm like, is that not exactly what Thor does to Jack every time he wants to talk to him? Like, is that not an alien abduction?
I mean, yes, but that's why they specifically went only for people who saw what they described to look like the Asgards, the green floating lights, it being without like their permission in their sleep, like. Because, like, you know how, like, some people believe that they're vampires and, like, they, like, bite people, but, like, the people that they're, like, hanging out with are like, yeah, that's cool. Like, I'm into it. There are some people out there who are like, dude, aliens abducted me. I want to tell you everything about this planet that I'm going to go to when I die and like become the savior of the new race or whatever fucking weird cult shit. And then there's other people who are like, dude, I was asleep last night and I woke up to something touching my butt and lights everywhere and I don't remember who I am. And then you're like, oh, one of you is probably more believable than the other.
Right. Right. 100%.
I mean, you also may just have been like molested, and then I feel bad for you, and it might have been a person, not an alien. But also,
it could have been like sleep paralysis, or it could have been a dream that you just like was hyper realistic, or
I've had some fucked up dreams, like lucid dreaming.
Yeah, or like lucid dreaming.
Okay, not to get off on another tangent because that's really all we ever do on this podcast. Dan's dreams do not make sense to me. This man has fairly lucid dreams almost every night. And he's aware that he's dreaming in his dreams. Like, he will be dreaming about something, be annoyed, and then be like, oh, well, it's okay because it's just a dream, but God, that's really annoying. Like, he doesn't have nightmares. He has night annoyances where, like passive aggressive things happen, or like he can't get out of some place, but he knows he's dreaming and he can't wake himself up. Like, And I'm like, I had a dream that part of my body was a whale and I was stuck underneath like a mountain. Like, what the fuck do you mean you got annoyed that the copier jammed in your sleep? Like,
Serial killer. Another check box for that.
I don't. I it is.
I hope people are keeping a tally of how
I
many
know.
tallies I've made of Dan being a serial killer. So
Someone please go listen to all of our episodes, find every time we accuse my fiance of being a serial killer and let us know.
because I sure
I
didn't keep up with it, but I would like to know how
I
many
would
times.
say like we'll do a contest, but that would require us knowing how many times we've said
Mm.
that, and I don't
Well, if
think
you didn't say that, then we could just like guesstimate. We should be like, you have to tell us how many, but also tell us the instances so we can compare the pros and cons, and then we know if we said it or not. You know, like
it's a really in-depth test.
right. We'll give you something super cool.
An invitation to my wedding.
Ooh,
Could you imagine?
in Buffalo in January, it's gonna be cold. Bring a sweater.
Especially like for the people who listen to the podcast that I don't know and have never talked to us, and it's just like, all right, send me your address.
Canada might be okay. You got Canada pretty close, but we have like a lot of listeners in what is it, Germany? Does it get cold in
Yeah.
Germany?
Yeah, it gets cold in Germany.
I don't know anything about Germany. I have a friend who lives there. And also my friend is getting citizenship there because his family's from there. And he's been working on it for a couple of years and he's got 3 more years. And I'm gonna marry him and move there with him because I can't make decisions in my own life. And I love him. He's gay, but it's fine. He said it was fine.
That's fine. I mean I almost married a man in Africa just because I wanted to go to Africa. But then he wanted me to like live there forever and I said no, I couldn't. And also
Africa has some dangerous places.
well he owns he owns a safari company on
Tell
a
me he
national
owns Africa.
no, he owns Africa. No, he owns a safari company in a national park like reserve in
I do remember you
Botswana.
telling me about that.
Yeah, he's married now and they look so happy. And like I just talked to him like a couple weeks ago after his wedding and he's so happy and I'm so happy for him. But yeah, he was always like, you should come out here. And I was like, I can't live in Botswana forever, dude. I'll visit you. I would love to visit you. I don't think I can live in Botswana. Okay. So Sam,
so sorry.
no, we're guys, it's a day. Sam is now trying to run this briefing about the thing and the shifts and the pilots are basically the most like stereotypical military we've had so far in the show and they just like
the worst.
The worst. They're like, okay, but like you weren't the one flying the ship. She was like, they're like, weren't you only in the second seat? First of all,
you weren't even in a seat, first of all.
Right. Like, okay, I understand that the first seat is like the one actually controlling the ship, and that there are some details that the person in the second seat wouldn't quite understand. But she was, if you're talking about how the inertial dampeners affect how you feel in zero G, she was on the ship. If you're talking about the navigational controls, she designed the ship. Like, what the fuck is your problem?
She's smarter than every one of you in this room. Obviously. Clearly smarter.
But then Baby Jack comes in and takes over. And because Jack is Jack and he is the sassiest motherfucker on planet Earth, this 15-year-old apparently scares them enough that they listen. Which is just wild.
That just felt vaguely believable.
I mean, but also, there's probably enough military men that are so insecure in their masculinity that they'd rather listen to a 15-year-old boy than a woman.
Yeah, I didn't say that out loud, but I did also think that. Yeah.
So Daniel and Teal are talking to the abductees, and they all have the exact same story about what happened to them. So they're like, okay, so like this is legit. But then Janet's like, hey guys, if we're gonna get help, it's gotta be fast. Because Jack is dying.
And I want you to know that I feel like your last week's episode was trying to set me up to be like, you said someone big is gonna like not
Yes.
be with us. I don't remember what your wording,
Oh yeah, no,
but
I said someone is going to legit die this
yeah.
season.
And so it made it feel like you were setting up for Jack, but no, because I know that Jack outlasts someone else that leaves the show first.
Okay.
And so I won't be fooled by you.
Okay.
I won't be fooled again.
Okay.
Unless both people leave this season. And then that would be just a lot.
Okay. 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 I did actually, as I was writing that note, go, oh man, I wonder if Courtney is gonna think that this is the big death because I'm being so vague and so like upsetting about the death that's gonna happen this season. Because it is very
Well,
vague and very upsetting.
yeah.
Um,
Well, I think I know what it is, but I thought you said it last week specifically because this episode
mm,
was coming and
mm,
you were trying to set me up.
that would have been smart, but no. I actually said it 2 weeks ago and just about
Did
season
you?
7 in general.
I don't know what day it is.
It's totally fine. It's
I don't
fine.
know what's going on.
No, I'm glad. I'm glad that you're on edge now.
I am. Oh, every day. Every day.
Um, so Jacob arrives to try to help them, and he says that they can't really fix the problem, but they can put Jack in a cryostasis until they figure out what is happening to the cellular degradation, which is, and even a little tiny baby Jack is like not about it. He's like, fuck aliens. For a guy who works with aliens, he really does not like aliens.
For a guy whose bestie is Thor.
Well, right,
Come
like
on.
the two people Jack cares about most in the universe, Thor and Teal'c, but he hates aliens.
Right. What a
Um,
conundrum.
so Baby Jack escapes, and he goes to a gas station and tries to buy beer, but he's 15. And the attendant is like not giving any, but then an old like spec ops buddy of Jack's happens to show up at the gas station at the same time, and he's like, "Oh yeah, like I know you. My uncle was in your unit." And uh Colonel Beck's like, Jack did not have any siblings.
And as Jack, you should know.
Right. You're like, no, what? Of course these people would know. You know how easily he could have just made it seem like it was his wife's family?
Yeah, for sure. For sure.
I mean, ex-wife now, but like,
Yeah.
no.
No. Baby Jack is still regular Jack who doesn't always think things through.
Correct. Um, he still tries to get beer. Doesn't work. But then back at the base, it turns out that Selmac has now like taken over control of the brain to try to look through some stuff. And Selmac is like, hey, so I figured out what the problem is. It's not Jack. It's a clone.
That I did not see coming. I didn't know what was going to happen, but it was not that.
Yeah. So they figured out that based on the cloning process that we know that the Asgard uses, and the
Mhm.
fact that all the other abductees are fine, what must be happening is that they are abducting people, cloning them to practice their technology, and then putting them back. We also know that this genetic deformity that they found in Baby Jack is something that they have seen before in like what Heimdall and Thor were explaining to them about the cloning degeneration process and what the Asgard have been trying to fix. But
Mhm.
obviously, this is not the way to do it. So they want to intercept or capture whichever Asgard is doing this and try to like get in contact with the Asgard High Council and figure out what's the deal. Um, Beck calls Hammond and is like, weirdest shit just happened to me at the gas station. So they find Jack at a fishing hole, and he's like, "How'd you find me?" And they're like, "Well, you like to fish. You bought bait, and you pretended to be yourself to another person who actually knows you." Um, and they tell him that he's a clone. And Baby Jack does not like this. He does not like anything they're saying. He does not like the plan. Not because he doesn't want to figure it out, but because he realizes that they won't save him. They want their Jack back, which I find to be a really interesting moral and emotional conundrum, especially after the way Jack treated the robot Jack from the
That was what I was just
Contraria.
about to say.
This is
Mhm.
like a whole big, like, full circle moment for him, like, figuring out that, like, oh, clones have feelings.
Yeah.
So, um, Baby Jack gets abducted, and Jack appears in his place, very confused why all of SG-1 is in his bedroom. Um, and Baby Jack shoots the Asgard and beams everyone up onto the ship. We find out that the Asgard who did this is named Loki. Um, he was, in fact, a scientist for the Asgard, but they kicked him out because he wanted to do experiments on humans to save
Because he's the Lord
the
of
Asgard.
Mischief. He's the trickster
Yeah.
god.
Yeah, I mean, his heart was in the
Ugh,
right place.
I love it. I love it.
His heart was for sure in the right place. He was just trying to like save his people, just not in really a good way.
Even
But
bad Loki is still good Loki. I love Loki.
but also he fucked up because they beam Thor in finally. And we find out that because Jack was able to hold the entire repository of the ancient knowledge in his head, it proves that he, at least, and maybe more humans now, have evolved from what humans used to be, and their minds are more likely capable of
hmm
storing as much information as the Asgard mind is. However, knowing this fact, the Asgard High Council had already safeguarded Jack's DNA to prevent anyone from cloning him, which is why Baby Jack was a janky clone. um, they also, Thor tells us that it's actually not going to work. Like, humans have developed, but there's still something wrong. There's some
hmm
piece that they haven't figured out yet. And it's not that humans aren't good enough. There's just some piece of the DNA that has eluded them. Their scientists haven't figured it out yet. It wouldn't have worked even if Jack's DNA hadn't had that
Right.
safeguard. So it is what it is. But the reason that baby Jack is dying as rapidly as he is because of that safeguard.
Yeah.
And he's like, well, what do I do? And oh no, the reason he didn't become an adult is because of the safeguard. The rapid dying, though, is because Loki deliberately made it so that the clones would rapidly die because he didn't consider them necessary. He just needed this data,
Yeah.
which is
Which is not great.
not great. So Jack finally comes full circle on being like a person and caring, and he asks for baby Jack to be saved. Thor saves him, and then baby Jack goes off to high school. And there's a really sweet moment where they're talking about like, if you could do it all over again with everything you know, would you? And
Yeah.
Jack is like,
Checks. No.
no. um, but yeah, so that is Fragile Balance. Um, some trivia. Uh,
hmm
Michael Welch actually has blue eyes, but he wore colored contacts to have the same eyes as O'Neill, like as Richard Dean Anderson. But also, if you his eyes are very like red and like his face is like very red for a lot of the episode, and part of that's just being a teenager, and part of that is because those contacts were terrible.
Oh
Um,
no.
I mean, they were just irritating when you're not used to that.
Yeah.
Also, this episode was one of their attempts at creative ways around Richard Dean Anderson's filming schedule that we talked
Oh
about, and how
yeah. I
he,
already forgot about that.
yeah,
Episode 3.
yeah, and this was the first episode that they filmed for this season, and Richard Dean Anderson was not available yet till the end of filming, and so that is why they made this other character. Um, and unfortunately, this is not really a spoiler. Unfortunately, we will not see Baby Jack again. Um, they they had a lot of they loved it and they wanted to be able to find ways to bring him back, but they didn't want to bring him back just to bring him back. They needed the
Right.
story to work, and they just never found a way to make it work. Um,
Yeah.
but my favorite is that Richard Dean Anderson wasn't there. He wasn't available for filming. Um, but they needed Michael Welch to be as Jack-like as possible.
Hmm.
So Peter DeLuise actually did a lot of like line reading and coaching to like teach Michael Welch how to say things the way Richard Dean Anderson would have done it. Which is why it's so believable, and his acting is like so bad, but because it's so obviously Richard Dean Anderson in a child body almost.
Yeah.
And Michael Shanks said that it was one of his favorite things to film because he's like, when you play a character for a really long time, a part of it becomes caricature just like naturally.
Hmm.
And he's like, and watching Peter be Rick and then Michael copying it was just the most entertaining thing for all of them.
I bet that was super fun.
Yeah. And I don't think like plot wise, it's really the strongest episode. I really like it. It's fine. But it is one of those episodes that fans really, really love. Like
Yeah.
it comes up on Reddit at least once a week.
I
And
can
I
imagine.
and I think it's just because it's so interesting that the characters have gotten defined to the point where not once did you doubt that that was Jack.
Well, and it was a fun episode too. Like
Yeah.
it was fun to watch, even if
And
it wasn't
and it
like.
was very sci-fi-y.
Mhm.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
no, so that is a fragile balance.
I like it. I like it.
Do you have any thoughts, theories, questions, concerns?
Um, no, because I don't feel like this is going to be super related. I mean, I'm sure we'll see something about cloning in general again, but I don't think
Yeah,
it's going to be, this is going to be necessary to be referenced. So I feel like this is just
that's
truly
fair.
a one-off.
That's totally fair. Who do you want to punch?
That guy in the front of the pilot class
Oh, he
that
was a
was
fucking
like,
prick.
yeah, rude to Sam.
Yeah, for sure. I am going to pick Loki.
Sure.
Um, who is your MVP?
I mean, Baby Jack is great, but I think I'm gonna have to go with Sam because she just cracked me up because all she did was crack jokes this episode, I felt like.
Yeah, she's very funny in
And
this episode.
it was really good. So I'm going with Sam.
All right. That's good. I'm gonna go with Baby Jack just because I love him.
Hmm.
Yeah. Next week's episode is, in fact, not related to this. But it is pretty, like it's got some central through line plot stuff. It's not a like super unrelated
Okay, so
one-off
like
episode. Yeah. So it's it'll be a good one.
nice, nice.
Um it's a it's a Braytac episode, so
Always love a Braytech episode.
Well, and it's the first Braytech episode post Tritonin.
Oh yeah, it is, isn't
So
it?
it's gonna be some interesting things happening. So
I
yeah.
love it.
So if you guys have any thoughts, theories, questions, concerns, or tallies on how many times we've called my fiance a serial killer, please email us at deathandaliens@gmail.com or follow us on any social media at Death and Aliens. You can follow me everywhere at EMKAY_superstar.
And you can find me at CE Cloud 13.
And with that, we will see you on Thursday. Bye.
Bye.